I know you're tired. I know you're hurting. And I wish I could say something that was classy and inspirational. But that just wouldn't be our style. Pain heals. Chicks dig scars. Glory lasts forever. Right on. Shotgun. DC right. Flip 90. Dig. On the center. Ready?
Woo-hoo-hoo-hoo. I don't know about you, but I'm ready to go. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of The Bills Guys, a Buffalo Fanatics multicast. We're going to start calling it multicast. The barbershop, they call their thing the multicast. I'm not going to lie to you. It sounds better. It sounds cooler.
It sounds official. I'll say that.
Pierre might have wanted that just for him. He might have wanted that just for them. But we're stealing it because that's what we do. We steal Bobby's graphics. We're stealing Pierre's name. That's how we roll here at the Bills Guys. Hardly an original thought here, except for Dave. Dave, I'm not going to speak for you, but for me, hardly an original thought. My name, ladies and gentlemen, is Steve Mathis. You can find me on Twitter at Judge Mathis, joined as always by my co-host Dave Tilton. You can find him on Twitter at Tilt Money. And Dave, who do we have in the chat today? Who we got?
Oh my God, man. It was like a barrage as soon as the show went live. We've got Dr. Meme was waiting in the wings already. Zach Allen's in there. Corey Buffalo, of course, is in. Elliott's in the house. And Smith's in the house. The King's in there. Pierre's in there. Davion's in the house. Dried Ocean's in the house. Mark Bloomquist. Chris Janke, who is, of course, now your Twitter handle for the week. Robbie's in there. Martin Bradstreet. Stephen Campione is in the house. So we've got Daniel Gowry's How Could I Forget is in the house. So, yes, everybody is ready to roll tonight.
I love, right off the bat, Jacob Ander. Just a short 26 more days until Bills football. Are you ready? Let's go. We got Martin Bradstreet screwing up the likes already. Hey, Bills guys, smash that like, guys and gals. Yes. Smash that like, ladies and gentlemen. Smash it. Smash it. I don't know. Like, I can't tell the YouTube likes until after we're done. So I'm just going to take your word for it that you're all smashing that like. All right. So we had a whole show planned for today about training camp battles, but Davion, welcome.
Davion brings it every time in the beginning.
Every
of the show.
time.
It's the show, and we love it. Davion's the man.
I'm thinking he's going to be in running for my Twitter handle, my next Twitter handle.
I think he's cemented that, hasn't he?
There's plenty to work with there with the last name of Price. There's plenty to work with there. So he might have cemented himself as my next Twitter handle. So Davion, you got to get on Twitter if you're not on Twitter. But we were going to start with training camp. We were going to start with Steve's as he does. But we were going to start with training camp battles, but something happened in training camp today. Something happened. Last play of practice, Josh Allen, completing deep balls like it's his job, apparently, because now in practice, he's completing deep balls like crazy. Final play of 11 on 11s today. Still have not seen video proof of it, but I hope it exists somewhere. Josh Allen dropping in a bomb right over, not Josh Norman, not Levi Wallace, who didn't practice today, not Teron Johnson. Josh Allen dropping a dime to John Brown over Tre'Davious White, one of the top 3 corners in the National Football League. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't know about you. I don't care if they're not hitting yet. I don't care if it's glorified shorts practice with some elbow pads on. Josh Allen, he's ready to go, folks. He's ready. I don't know, Dave. What are your thoughts? Dropping dimes over Trey White today.
Yeah, and I wonder, part of me thinks that, well, we know there's different media rules now with what they can and can't show as far as video. And you and I were talking before we went on about like maybe the Bills will clip something up, but I don't know that they want to make Trey look bad because let's
No, you do, because he's in a contract. Like,
No, you don't because what's going to happen is Trey's going to hear about all this stuff and he's going to see how like there was a great play that was made on him, and he's going to come back and he's going to pick Josh Allen off on one of these deep balls during practice, and then we just got to be careful not to swing too far the other way when something like that happens, right? So yes, it's super encouraging what happened today, hearing about that. We got all those videos that we saw of Josh Allen throwing balls, and look, it's great. It's very encouraging, and it's nice that it's happening this quickly into practice, right? I think that's the thing for me. That's like the biggest takeaway is like, if he wasn't doing this in like glorified shorts practice, right?
Mhm.
Then I would be maybe like a little bit like, okay, like he should be able to make some of these throws in shorts practice, right? But again, it was against Trey White, so I'm not going to take anything away from that. But yes, like it's a great first step. Ted says, I may be relatively new to watching you guys, but I love the stuff you guys put up and keep up the good work.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
This is the most homerish we've been in a while, but it's well deserved because, ladies and gentlemen, we got Mark Bloomquist in the house too. What up, guys? I'm ready. That is the perfect one right there, though. The woo from Ric Flair, because
the nature boy.
It has literally been. It has literally been like, I don't care how homerish I sound tonight. I don't care, because it has literally been since what? The Houston Texans game, since I've seen a Buffalo Bills player in an actual helmet and in actual pads and in like a semi-actual jersey. I'm soaking it up for all it's worth right now. I'm in charge of 120 kids on Google Meets. I had all their asses muted today, and I was just scrolling Twitter all day. They were watching a movie. Like, that's what, in all reality, they weren't. Trust, no one called my principal. But that's what I was doing today. Every chance I had, I was on Twitter because, like, Stephon Diggs, I mean, come on. To actually see that guy in a Bills uniform. When's the last time we had a bona fide receiver like that? Like, T.O. was at the end of his prime. You know, Lee Evans was always like a middling, like, you know, maybe 10 to 15 receiver in the NFL. Maybe you can make the argument like Stevie or Eric, but like, it's been a while since we have had a player of Stephon Diggs caliber. Like,
Eric Moulds is really the last one in my mind. I mean, Stevie Johnson was a decent number one, and Lee Evans was like I don't even know that he was as good as a complete receiver as John Brown is now, but like that's the kind of mold I kind of see him in. So you're right. I mean, it's been since probably Eric Moulds that we've had a guy of this caliber.
And like, maybe it's just been so long. We mentioned Terrell, like but he was past his prime when he got here.
Yes,
like he wasn't prime.
In their prime,
TO.
We're talking about in their prime.
Like, when's like, we're gonna get into this, you know, as the show goes on. But
Sammy Watkins,
he was young. He was young, but
he
like,
was good.
That's true. He was really good. I almost forgot about Sammy. But we have Stephon Diggs, we have Trey White, we have Tremaine Edmonds, Ed Oliver. We have legitimately like 4 to 6 guys on this team that could be absolute superstars in the National Football League, and most of them are homegrown talents. And like I said, I'm going to be a homer today. I don't care. Like, I just don't. Come at me if you want and say I got the goggles on. My glasses are extra thick today because, like, I'm just so ready. 26 days, as Jacob Anders said. 26 days. Now I'm just sort of repeating myself and getting a little animatronic here, but save me, Dave.
Well, here's the thing, right? I think a lot of this has to do with the fact that we've been starving for football, right? There's been no OTAs. We haven't seen the guys in any kind of like live action. It's the first time seeing Stephon Diggs in practice, right? Other than some of like the drills like he was doing just like on his own. So it is certainly reasonable to get excited after what you've seen today. But I think Truth to Hearts made a comment like let's not get too excited, right? It's not like game competition. And I get that. But the excitement for me, I guess, is more of just seeing football back and seeing the guys like perform well in practice. And like, I'm not going to take day one of practice and jump to any kind of like crazy conclusions, but I'm going to say I am excited to see everyone in action. And I'm excited to see things going well in practice and hearing all the good reports about, it's one thing to kind of say you're going to like work on things in the off season. And then it's another thing to actually have people who are like the media, the guys covering the Bills, like the Perinos, the Matt Boveys, the John Scott, like these guys say like, hey, Josh Allen's like mechanics on the deep ball actually look different than they did last year. That's the kind of stuff that's like really intriguing to me.
Gone to the Buffalo News.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So it's very encouraging and it's exciting that that football is back. 26 days, depending on your perspective, it's either going to fly by or it's going to be a grind. But I think it's going to fly by. Honestly, I really do.
Let's hope, because I mean, when we started this show, it was like what, in the 90s or the 80s? Oh no, it was in the 60s, but we were counting down to Bills Ravens. So we've been doing this for like 3 months now, and
2 shows a week. So
yeah. And here's the final thing I'll say about sort of the padded practice today, and that is for all the flack I like to give Josh Allen, because I do think right now Kyler Murray and Joe Burrow might be better quarterbacks right now. But the thing that I will say about Josh Allen is he definitely started 12 rungs behind all of these guys, all of them, every single one of them. And the way in which he is climbing that ladder and the speed with which he is climbing that ladder, it's absolutely incredible. Like every time someone criticizes something about Josh Allen, he goes out there, he spends an off season, he gets with Jordan Palmer, and he fixes it. Like we're now go back and watch his first start in Minnesota or against San Diego, or go back and watch that Minnesota game or his early games when he's playing like Houston and Indy before that injury. Like to see how far he looked like a high school JV quarterback out there his rookie season, the first half of his rookie season, and to see that, like that deer in headlights, completely overwhelmed, completely outmatched, completely outwitted guy who you could tell had the physicality to play in the National Football League. You saw it in the Vikings game. But that guy who is so overmatched mentally and mechanically, to see where he's come from in just that short a time span, absolutely incredible. Absolutely incredible.
I know, and I mean, let's be realistic here. Like, this is what people said about him coming out, right? The physical skill set, the tool set was there. It was a question of development, and could he develop, right? So if you take the physical skill set that you really can't teach, right? The cannon arm, the size, the ability to run, all of that stuff, you take that aside and you say, this is stuff that you can't teach or develop really, right? Because there's been very few cases where, let's say, you could develop nominal incremental arm strength, whatever. Won't get into that right now. But that aside, then the question was, can he be developed, right? Mm-hmm. Small school guy, only started for 2 years. When he came into the league, that was the question mark on him, was like, could he improve certain things about his game? And it's been encouraging to see that he's made all the right steps so far at this point in his progression, that he has progressed, and that's the key. Like, he's made incremental steps to improve his game. So that's the encouraging part. And if he puts that together with the physical skill set, then you get to a point where you potentially have a super high ceiling player. So,
and someone in the comments section, my boy Chris Janke, saying, he was throwing to backup receivers with practice squad offensive linemen. So let's take a second to shout out Brandon Beane real quick, because the Bills guys had a little tweet today that went semi-viral, went Bills Mafia viral. I felt like I told you before the show, I felt like Bradley Gelber. I tweeted something and like 40 people retweeted it and like 400 people liked it. I felt like Bradley for a second there. But, Josh Allen in his first season had what? Jason Kroom, Charles Clay, Zay Jones, Andre Holmes, Kelvin Benjamin, Jeremy Curley for like a game and a half, Chris Ivory, LaShawn McCoy, Russell Bodine, John Miller, Jordan Mills. Who was the left guard? It wasn't Richie, was it?
Vlad
Dukas.
Yeah.
Like, from that to Stephon Diggs, John Brown, Cole Beasley, Gabe Davis, Dawson Knox, Tyler Kroft, Deion Dawkins, Cody Ford, Mitch Morse, Brian Winters,
Quentin Spain,
Zach Moss, Devin Singletary. I mean, come on. This is insane. It's absolutely insane what Brandon Beane has done. I like the capitalization from Joe Miller there in Dukas. But what Brandon Beane, if they were giving an award out for what guys have done, not just over a season, but like if every 5 years they gave out a GM of the half-decade award or something like that. Because honestly, this just came into my head. I think they should do it. I just think I have a genius idea. I think every 5 years they should give out a GM of the last 5 years award. Like, let's look at more than just a year, because sometimes team building takes more than a year, folks. And what Brandon Beane has done in like 3 years is absolutely incredible. So like, just make him up. I'll go to the local trophy store and make him something up, because he deserves something. Maybe an extension. Extension, maybe. Anyone?
Yeah. It's gonna be so you're gonna lead me into my musing, if you will.
All right. So it's Monday, folks, and it's almost the regular season. So we're gonna start trying to do some bits here, because let's face it, we need to add some flavor to the show. And what we're gonna do on Mondays is every day we're gonna give you our Monday musing, something that we're musing about, something that we're thinking about on Monday. So every Monday we're going to bring you our Monday musing. So Dave, actually, I take it back. Before Dave goes and gives us his Monday musing. First of all, I got a super chat here from Andrew Miller, and I can't work a MacBook, so I just got a MacBook, by the way, everyone. I'm legit now. But Andrew Miller for $4.99 says, "Can we talk about Josh Allen's work ethic? I've never heard about the work ethic JP, Trent, EJ, etc. put in like Josh Allen. I don't want to say that's true to an extent because from what I heard, those guys did have a decent work ethic, but Josh Allen's like next level. I will say I think that Josh Allen's absolutely next level, and Pierre's made the claim before, like he's wired differently. He really is. And I'll go back to that John Feliciano Instagram story any day of the week where he's sitting there cooking dinner for his teammate the night he gets out of pectoral muscle surgery. Like that's just he's just wired differently, I think, than a quarterback we've had here in a long time. I believe I mentioned he's like Fitzpatrick, but with above average talent.
And let's not discount Tyrod's work ethic either, because he was known to have probably the best work ethic on the team. I think the main difference between the two is probably just, the way that they kind of like exuded sort of that onto the field. Maybe Josh Allen does that a little bit more from a leadership perspective, because Tyrod was kind of like a quiet leader. I'm not saying he was a bad leader by any means, but I think it's a different style. And it seems like Josh Allen's style really fits with what this team's all about.
So let's get into our Monday musing now. Thank you, Andrew. We absolutely love that kind of distraction. But so every Monday, me and Dave are going to give like one take, one thing that we're thinking about, one thing that we're musing about. But while we're giving our takes, what are you guys thinking about? Like, what are some thoughts that are going through your head today? What are some things that you're thinking about? Hit us up in the comment section while we're sharing what we're thinking about. When we're sharing like takes that are coming into our head, share what you guys have coming to your head, and we'll read some off here when we're done sharing our take. But Dave, lead us off with your Monday musing.
So my thing that was popping into my head today was, last week we had obviously the big news with McDermott's extension, and obviously then followed by Dawkins getting his extension, right? And so my thought today is, okay, we're going to be in a reduced salary cap next year. McDermott made the comment around how he couldn't really see himself working with anyone other than Brandon Beane in that GM role. So what I've been thinking about today is like, how long before we see an extension for Brandon Beane follow, the McDermott, the Dawkins, or is he going to kind of try to take care of players first before he worries about himself? Now, my thought here is that you gave McDermott the extension before the season started. And if you want these guys sort of in lockstep, if I was the Pagulas, I'd be giving Beane an equivalent extension before the season started. So while it's like people are kind of waiting for that to happen, we've got a couple weeks to go. But I think for me, the countdown is kind of on before week 1. I would like to see Beane get that extension before week 1. We have a couple weeks to go for it to happen. But I would find it a little odd, I guess, if given the fact that the GM salary really has no bearing on the salary cap situation, why you wouldn't just get this done and just make it so that when the season starts, there's no like disassociation between McDermott and Beane from a contract standpoint. Because if let's just say for some reason things go a little weird at the beginning of the season and people like, oh, McDermott got this extension, Beane didn't get an extension. Like it just takes one variable out of the equation, right? So I say what I'm thinking about today, I want Beane to get that extension before week 1. And that's kind of where, I think my head's going to be at for the next couple of weeks, seeing what happens there.
Yeah, I'm with you to an extent, but at the same time, if Beane is comfortable here and Beane wants to stay here, and I can't imagine like his contract's up. We would have heard if his contract was like up after the season or something. I can't imagine
had the same. When he got brought in by McDermott, I believe they got brought in on the same schedule. So his contract would have been up the same time as McDermott's from the initial contract, which would have been next year. So,
but not next
he would. Right. So,
okay. So yeah, you're right. I didn't realize they were in lockstep because my next take was going to be maybe they're just giving McDermott this sort of summer to shine, and next summer they'll give Brandon Beane the summer to shine, and they'll sync up that way because their contracts weren't up or like we're off by a year or something like that. So that would be my take. But in my opinion, I think they'll get it done. We sort of learned at Buffalo Fanatics in the promo game. Like sometimes you got to put a little buffer into the storyline. You gotta drop one story and not let the other story kill the buzz of the other story. So you want to spread them out a little bit. Not that the Bills try to do that with Deion Dawkins and Sean McDermott, but
and Joe, it just like there's comments being made around like Beane came a year after, and I understand that he did, right, because that first draft was with Whaley, and then Whaley was gone. They brought in Beane after that, but my understanding is that when they brought Beane in, they matched the length of that deal so that him and McDermott's contracts would be expiring at the same time. Someone can fact check me on that, but I'm pretty sure that's the case.
And Andrew Miller with another great comment. He says, stay healthy, stay healthy, stay healthy. One of the things that scared me this morning during Sean McDermott's press conference, he's like, yeah, Levi Wallace isn't going to be out there today. Ed Oliver's not going to be out there today. Isaiah Hodgins and another player, they're going to have the red jersey. Oh, Voshan Joseph, they're going to have the red jerseys on. I'm kind of concerned about all the soft tissue injuries. And I'm just like, oh, no. Like I was starting to have a little panic attack at my desk at work when I started hearing that. But I trust this. I trust this training staff. I trust the facilities we have. I trust Coach McDermott. I think he'll right the ship. But yeah, that's definitely, especially in this type of offseason where there's not going to be preseason. They're sort of going from like
look what happened to Gerald McCoy.
Yeah,
look what happened to Gerald McCoy today.
Someone else tore their ACL today. Jalen Hurd over in San Francisco tore their ACL today too. So it's stay healthy, please, because we've seen some crazy injuries over the past couple of days. Anthony Romeo here with his Monday musing. Why isn't Steven Hauschka a Giant yet? The Giants cut their kicker today, Chandler Cannizzaro.
They signed Graham
Gano. But here's my thing. Steven Hauschka didn't kick it all in camp today. Tyler Bass did. He was the only kicker who actually kicked today, at least during the media portion. And guess what Tyler Bass's statistics were today? You can either see this as a positive, folks, or you can see it as a negative. I'm choosing to see it as a positive, but he was 6 for 9 today.
And I think his only misses were like 45 and longer.
I was hoping to get a reaction out of you there. He was 6 for 9 today.
I know where you're getting at with that. What are you, Rob Gronkowski all of a sudden?
You're supposed to respond with nice.
Nice. Hey, let me smash a Lego head of Steve Harvey. If you guys haven't seen that clip, go find it. Just a quick sidebar. New Year's Eve show on Fox last year. Steve Harvey was the host, and they made a Lego bust of him, and Gronk came on and just smashed it to pieces. So go find that video. It's hilarious.
Anthony, we're not going to use that word today. We already agreed. So my Monday musing is I wrote an article this morning. Actually, I shouldn't say this morning because I was a little late with it. Not my proudest moment. By a little late, I mean about 10 hours late. But my Monday musings dropped on the BuffaloFanatics.com. Make sure you put the in. I got you, Pierre. I got you, Bobby. Don't you worry. Make sure you get the in when you go to the website, thebuffalofanatics.com. My article dropped today, and it was all about the future of the Buffalo Bills in their team building. And, I dropped a couple of hot takes in there, but we'll save the hot takes for later. One of the things that sort of came to me as I was writing the article, like mid-article, I sort of adjusted where I was going with the article was I was thinking to myself, my thought process, and I mentioned it last week, it was Matt Milano. Oh, if he's a cornerstone player, they'll sign him right now. Like if they truly see weak side linebacker and Matt Milano as a cornerstone player, they'll sign him before the season starts because his value is only going to go up and up and up and up. But the more I thought about it and seeing Josh Allen out there on the practice field today makes me think that maybe the Buffalo Bills are waiting to see how Josh Allen performs in 2020 before extending Matt Milano. Because if you think about it, if you have to pay Josh Allen and you're already paying Stephon Diggs and you're already paying Deion Dawkins and you're going to have to pay Ed Oliver and Tremaine Edmonds and Trey White and Micah Hyde in a couple of years, actually in a year, and you're already paying Jordan Poyer. It's a lot of money. That's a lot of money in the salary cap era. And as much as some people want to say the salary cap doesn't exist, it does to an extent. And maybe it's a thing where if Josh Allen soars this year and Josh Allen takes off, it's like, all right, we're going to have to sacrifice a piece on the defense because our offense is finally stepping up. We got to pay that quarterback. But, and I say this I say this, I'm going to pray before I say this. If Josh Allen doesn't If Josh Allen doesn't step up this year and take the next step, or he plateaus, maybe the Buffalo Bills see the situation where, like, okay, in 2 years we're probably not going to have to pay Josh Allen. We're gonna draft another guy or bring in a stopgap veteran. We can pay Matt Milano now. So maybe Matt Milano has nothing to do with it. I'm sure the Buffalo Bills love Matt Milano. It could be just like waiting to see where the tables, where the coin lands, I should say, with Josh Allen.
Yeah, and I mean, this is one of the like kind of bittersweet things about drafting well and having like a really deep roster is like there comes a point in time, and we haven't hit it yet, right? Because we're still kind of on that ascent where you have to make tough decisions around who you pay. And at the end of the day, if you have that many players that are that good, you're probably not going to be able to pay every single one of them. So by sort of doing what you're saying and kind of seeing how Josh plays this year potentially gives you, I don't want to call it a window, but it's more like it allows you to get more evidence in front of you before you make that decision to committing money one way or another. So I kind of like that idea actually, but yeah, if it ends up being that and Josh soars and we can't pay Matt, I don't think anyone's going to be too bent out of shape about it, because obviously everyone wants Josh to be the man. So I like that idea.
All right, let's turn it over now from our Monday musing. Let's turn into camp battles, because I want to have a conversation about camp battles. Training camp has started, so it's time to start talking about those camp battles. I feel like we've talked about it this offseason, but we usually dedicate shows to camp battles, and we haven't really done that this year. So I'm excited to get a chance to really sit down and have a conversation about some of these camp battles. You're going to share a camp battle that you're looking forward to. I'm going to share a camp battle that I'm looking forward to. And you guys in the comments section, blow us up. Tell us what camp battles you want us to talk about, your takes on camp battles, and we'll discuss it as well. But Dave, let's start with you. What is the camp battle you're most looking forward to?
Yeah, I mean, I almost went kicker here, but it's not too super deep to talk about that. So I'm looking at, and I mentioned this on prior shows, the thing that's really going to be interesting to me is sort of the bottom of that wide receiver depth chart, right? Your man crush, Nick Easley, unfortunately is gone, but there is still room at the bottom of that depth chart for some really interesting camp battles. So if we kind of just set the scene here for the wide receiver room, right? So we've got Diggs, we got Beasley, we got Brown. Those are your top three. Gabe Davis, I'm penciling in as a lock to the roster as a 4th round pick. That's 4 guys. And I'm also penciling in Andre Roberts as a lock as the return man. You've already heard glowing things being said about Andre from players and coaching staff. So I think it would be unwise to think that he's not going to make the team as the returner. So that's 5 guys right there. So to me, that leaves 4 guys potentially battling for 1 or maybe 2 roster spots. And that's Hodgins, it's McKenzie, it's Duke Williams, and it's Robert Foster. Those are the 4 guys at the bottom of that depth chart right now that are potentially battling for honestly only 1 roster spot, 2 if we keep 7. So for me, I'm going to be really interested to see how does Isaiah Hodgins perform as a route runner, and can he contribute any on special teams? We know that Duke Williams can. We know that Robert Foster can, and Isaiah McKenzie to me is a wild card here because of what he can offer you in versatility on some of the jet sweeps and those kind of move plays that we've seen, and we've also heard from Isaiah McKenzie through Jay Spence's interview around some of his work ethic. So he's an easy guy to root for. I think it's going to be very interesting to see how all this plays out, especially because now with the practice squad rules somewhat changing, the Bills may have a little bit more flexibility with what they do there. So it's like, to me, it's a matter of like whose skill sets are redundant with each other and who kind of separates themselves and can do like more for the team through either special teams or sort of more specialty type role. So those 4 guys are the 4 guys I'm going to be looking at. And I'm going to say, like, I don't know if we're going to keep 7 or not. So at best, it's 4 guys for 2 spots. And at worst, it's 4 guys for 1 spot. So I'm really paying attention to that battle as things kind of unfold now.
Yeah. And what's going to be really interesting, Colin makes a great point in the chat, by the way, about how Taiwan Jones takes Foster's spot as a gunner. So that's something that goes against Robert Foster now, because Heath Farrell came out and said in his press conference, I think I have the best two gunners in the National Football League in Tywan Jones and Saran Neal. But, back to your point with the wide receiver room, my tune is changing on Gabe Davis. My take all offseason on Gabe Davis is he was going to be a developmental guy, a guy you could see inactive a lot, a guy that very much was a boundary receiver in college and is going to take some time to work on his route running and become a slot receiver and become more than a one-dimensional sort of one-trick pony down the field type of guy. The more I hear people talk about him, the more I hear about the way he's been performing in the Florida workouts and in sort of, the Josh Allens of the world are talking about him, the more I think that maybe Gabe Davis has sort of grown as a receiver, or maybe just UCF was underutilizing him and he was capable of this the whole time. So my take has always been, did I say Gabe Lewis? I do apologize if I say Gabe Lewis, because is Bobby making fun of me or is Bobby getting his name wrong? But either way,
I think Bobby's getting his name wrong. You said Gabe Davis.
He was talking about Gabe. He was talking about Des Lewis in the chat. And I saw it. So
he just mixed it up.
There we go. Okay, so it's Bobby who screwed up, not me. Thank God. Anyway, now I've screwed up. But Gabe Davis, like he could have an impact this year as a fourth wide receiver. And I was always, my take was always, I thought Isaiah Hodgins could have a bigger rookie year than Gabe Davis, because I thought Isaiah Hodgins could get on the field more. But that being said, the more I hear people talk about both of these rookies, I think both of these rookies are going to make it. And I really do believe it. And I hate to say it, I think Isaiah McKenzie's the odd man out. I think the Bills keep Diggs, Brown, Beasley, Davis, Roberts, Hodgins. I think they keep 6. I think Isaiah McKenzie gets cut loose, and I think he's the kind of player who's going to latch on somewhere because he's a gadget player and he's going to make an impact. And I think that because of COVID, we're probably going to be able to sneak Robert Foster and Duke Williams onto the practice squad and have those two guys there waiting in the wings if anything happens, which is a pretty loaded wide receiver core if you ask me. But to my point on Isaiah McKenzie, I was having a conversation with Greg Tubbs of Cover One, and he said, listen, Isaiah McKenzie's a great gadget guy. But when Isaiah McKenzie's running a jet sweep, there's only so much the defense is really, there's only so much that they're feeling fooled. Like imagine John Brown and Stephon Diggs on the same side of the football field, standing right next to each other, and one of them goes to run a jet sweep, whether it's Diggs or whether it's John Brown. Stephon Diggs has run more,
do it.
And he's run more jet sweeps in his career than Isaiah McKenzie. So imagine an offensive set where those two are on the same side of the field and one of them runs a jet sweep. Like that's going to be absolute nightmare for the defense. The safeties, the linebackers, the corners, everyone. It's going to be an absolute nightmare. So as much as I love Isaiah McKenzie as a gadget guy, maybe our offense has evolved to a point where we don't need that anymore because our superstars can provide that.
Yes, I love that. I really do. And like you said, Diggs has done that before in his days in Minnesota. If he's your superstar and he can do it better than Isaiah McKenzie, then of course, right? Then of course. And honestly, this gets back to, not to get too off topic, but the creativity that Daboll is going to need to show this year and utilizing his playmakers, like getting the ball in Diggs' hands, even if it's through jet sweeps or running plays like that, gets him involved in the game early, right? And I think that you do that to kind of get him in the flow of the game, get him his touches. And if he can do plays like that makes Isaiah McKenzie's skill set redundant, then that's fine. The one thing people may make the argument about is like Isaiah McKenzie could be like your backup punt returner and kick returner, because like people generally probably don't want to see Micah Hyde have to go back there and do that. So the one sort of question I guess becomes is, outside of Andre Roberts, who can be your backup kick and punt returner if Isaiah McKenzie's not on the team? So I guess that's a question I'll ask you. Who do you think that could be if Isaiah McKenzie's not on the team and you don't want to put Micah Hyde back there?
I know that Cole Beasley's got experience doing it. I believe Dane Jackson has experience doing it.
Cole Beasley for sure on punts. Yeah, definitely.
Tywan Jones has a history of returning kicks. So there are bodies and there are guys. But this could also be something where if Andre Roberts gets hurt in the middle of a game, it's going to be Micah Hyde. It's going to be, because that's the only guy they trust. But this is the point where this is the part where you try to have the conversation. Maybe you go out and find a return guy to stash on the practice squad. Maybe someone who's not here yet, because there really isn't a lot of return ability, to my knowledge, on this wide receiver core. None of the top guys do it. Robert Foster doesn't do it. Duke Williams sure as heck don't do it. Like, not a lot of our not a lot of our skill position guys. We're just low, straight up low on guys who return kicks and punts. To my knowledge, it's Taiwan, it is Isaiah, and it is Andre, and maybe you could sprinkle like a Cole Beasley in there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I wonder how much that's going to factor in. Although, I mean, I love Isaiah McKenzie, but he also hadn't been the most reliable on ball security and fielding punts. So we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see.
All right. So my, you know what? I'm only doing this for my fantasy football league from my high school buddy. We have our own version of the Shiva. We call it the Ashwini. There you go, Jordan. You got it out of me. Trying to make me look unprofessional on my YouTube show. I said it. Give me a break. All right. So, my camp battle that I'm really looking forward to, and I saw a whole bunch of people blowing up the comment section with Levi Wallace versus Josh Norman. But in my opinion, that I don't think there's a battle really. I think Josh Norman's got it. Like, I think he's got it.
Josh Norman, great day one for him.
And I love Levi Wallace, and I love sort of, Levi Wallace seems like maybe he's a guy because he's coming with a serious chip on his shoulder. Maybe he can start again next year. Like, just take a year on the pine. Maybe take a year that he probably should have had. And learn from Josh Norman and learn from Trey White and be there in case of an emergency. But I care about nickel corner because Teron Johnson, Sean McDermott, you've heard Sal Capaccio say it single time he's on WGR. Sean McDermott loves availability. And Teron Johnson is a guy who always tries to play bigger than he is, and he always gets hurt. And he gets hurt at some really inopportune moments. We talk about John Brown's injury, or not John Brown's injury, but John Brown's drop and Duke Williams drop in that Houston game. Teron Johnson going down with an injury was just almost just as costly because that defense started to fold a little bit because Levi was already down, and then Teron Johnson went down. That's when that defense started to give up some chunk plays there in the second half of the Houston game. Is it as big as the other two things? No, but it's important. So I really want to see what Dane Jackson has, despite the fact that he's a rookie, a 7th-round pick. I want to see him come in there. I want to see him duke it out with Teron Johnson. Maybe Levi Wallace. I doubt it because he's very stiff. But maybe with bulking up a little bit, he can maybe step into the nickel. Maybe it'll be interesting to see if maybe they try to throw him in the nickel. I doubt it, but maybe they do. And last but not least, Saran Neal and Dean Marlowe. Like Saran Neal especially. I really want to see Saran Neal get a shot, like to be more of a nickel down player than sort of like the hybrid player he was last year. I'd love to see Saran Neal get some more run and keep developing in that nickel role and be a true big nickel for this Buffalo Bills team.
Yeah, plus Saran Neal's already one of the best gunners on the team, special teams wise, so you're kind of knocking two things out there.
Chris, I'm saving Cam Lewis, don't worry. We got another topic coming up.
And you talked about it like we both did like on many moons ago on shows ago about like wasting roster spots on guys that just play special teams. So if Saran Neal can kind of develop into that and play a little bit more of a role on defense, you kind of knock 2 roles out with 1 roster spot there with his ability on special teams and the ability to play that big nickel. So I'm with you there. I think that's a great idea.
Bobby says he lost faith in Saran after he got mossed by Le'Veon Bell. I'm surprised he didn't bring up the fact that he missed that sack on Deshaun Watson in the playoff game too. But that being said, someone in the comment section, and it kind of scrolled through real quick and I missed it, mentioned Jaquan Johnson, and something that I've brought up previously. If Jaquan Johnson develops and is showing some skills at safety,
I love Jaquan Johnson.
You don't want to throw a wrench. You don't want to throw a wrench into Hyde and Poyer because they are just, we mentioned, they're practically telepathic. But with Hyde and Poyer both having experience at corner, maybe we could see some plays some packages this year where it's Poyer and Johnson or it's Hyde and Johnson, and it's either Hyde or Poyer in the slot lining up against the slot receiver if it's a really good slot receiver, or lining up against a bigger slot or something of that nature. Maybe we could see Hyde and Poyer in the slot a little bit more this year if Jaquan Johnson can take a step and develop as a safety. It's a small chance, but it's a possibility. These are all things that I love looking for in training camp. Where's Levi Wallace lining up? Where's Saran Neal lining up? Are they messing around with the Voshan Josephs of the world? Are they messing around with the Micah Hydes and the Jordan Poyers? Like, where are they putting Mario Addison? These are all the things that we're sort of going to miss this year. And it's disappointing, but hopefully we'll still get it in sort of like we'll get those like intel reports, like sort of in little flashes here and there.
Yeah, and I mean, Poyer and Hyde both have experience doing that, so it's not out of the realm of possibility. But I guess the question becomes is, do you take that sort of well, they're both still be on the field at the same time, so I guess you're not really taking that sort of chemistry away, but you're just kind of basically saying that you think Jaquan Johnson on the field is more valuable to you than having like your nickel corner on the field and having Poyer and Hyde in their natural positions. So,
well, Dr. Beane brings up a great point here. He says, we need to be ready to beat the Chiefs week 6. The Chiefs have a guy named Travis Kelce. So my question to you is this. What are you more comfortable with? Saran Neal or Teron Johnson covering Travis Kelce? Or are you more comfortable with Jaquan Johnson dropping back and playing center field and Micah Hyde or Jordan Poyer covering Travis Kelce? I think I might.
You mean Jaquan Johnson getting burned by Tyreek Hill over the top? I don't know. So,
damn it, they're so good. Damn it. All right,
Yeah.
you put a nice little wrench in that one, but
nah, I'm just being an ass. Don't worry.
What, ladies and gentlemen, what are we looking for in camp battles? Let's talk about some of the camp battles in the comment section. Throw it in there. Hit us up. What camp battles do you guys want to talk about over the next 10, 15 minutes or so?
So there's been some comments around, we kind of glossed over the Norman and Wallace thing, but there's been a lot of comments around. Some people think that Wallace is the CB2, and obviously Norman had gotten some positive press today, and there was that video of him breaking up that pass on, I think it was Foster, if I'm not mistaken. So I think he kind of like, in the minds of Bills fans, like, okay, we signed this guy. He had a nice highlight today. Are we shoving Levi Wallace to the side too quickly? No, I personally think it's going to be Norman. But are we discrediting Levi Wallace too quickly? Because there seems to be a large contingent of fans that still think Levi has a chance to win this CB2 job.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. Like, I absolutely love the mindset of Levi Wallace. I've been a huge Levi Wallace fan before he was drafted. Like, in the pre-draft process, I was a huge fan of Levi Wallace. I couldn't believe he was a UDFA. Despite his physical features, I was really surprised that he was a UDFA simply because of what he did at such a high level in the SEC. But that being said, the way Josh Norman is talking, the way Josh Norman is walking, the way the coaching staff is talking about Josh Norman, just the whole vibe around Josh Norman is this dude is CB2. Like, it just really is. And it's unfortunate for Levi, but like I said, maybe it's a blessing. Maybe like he's still under contract for multiple years. Like, he's an RFA next year, I believe. We can bring him back, no problem, with a tender. So, Josh Norman comes in on a 1-year contract, plays it out. Levi Wallace shows throughout the year that he's ready. We draft a guy in the second, third round, and we have him and Levi Wallace duke it out next year. So it seems like it could be the best of both worlds, but I think it's definitely going to suck for Levi Wallace in the short term.
Yeah. There's a comment that Dr. Meme made, Murphy or Hughes, but I think the proper competition is probably Murphy against Epinesa in that case, because I think Murphy and Hughes don't play the same side. So
someone mentioned this at like the top of the show. They said AJ Epinesa was their second round pick, and nobody's talking about him. Like, what? What world are we living in? So let's take a second to talk about AJ Epinesa.
Yeah.
So
let's.
Who was it? Was it Leslie Frazier or was it Sean McDermott that were sort of singing AJ Epinesa's praises, saying that like the things that he had to do this offseason, he did. And he was ready to go once he got here and not put the pads on, because they just put the pads on today. But they, David, I did catch that. That was a long time ago. It's stuck in my mind. I wanted to talk about AJ Epinesa, but it's what are your thoughts on Epinesa? Like, where does he land?
Well, Murphy's going to have the leg up just because of the way this offseason has gone, right? All the rookies to some extent are going to get hurt by not having a preseason to get those reps in. So for me, I think that if Epinesa really has a strong camp, you may see him rotate in earlier than maybe we expected and play more snaps earlier than expected. But by all accounts, like the what we've heard out of the Bills brass throughout the offseason was that he was going to be brought along and kind of he would get put in once he was ready. Sort of like maybe You compared it to Ramon Humber years ago with Matt Milano, that type of situation. But if he really shows up in camp, then you invested like your second round pick in him on a guy who most people thought was going to be a first round pick. So maybe he does push Murphy more than we're letting on, because like that's the competition for Murphy right now. It's Epinesa, because you've got Addison, who's probably going to spell Hughes on that side. Although he could probably rotate around the line, but from your base starting defense, it's going to be Murphy against Epinesa, I think, for the competition. So I don't know, man. This is an interesting one. Like the coaching staff can say that, but if Epinesa plays well, it could be a situation like Oliver last year where they forced their hand and they have to play him early.
Yeah, it's this is unfortunately another situation because of the COVID offseason where we're kind of talking out of our ass a little bit, because this is the point. This is the time of year where we'd be opening up, Dean Kindig's, Astronauts, or we'd be opening up Joe Biscaglia or Matt Perino's training camp, primer for the day. And we'd be like, who was running with the ones? Who was running with the twos? Who was mixing in at 3 technique? We would be sitting there and we would be analyzing every single scouting report from training camp. Where were these guys lining up? And we don't have that this year. We don't. Right. So we don't know if Mario Addison's lining up at left end or if he's lining up in as the second string right end left end. We don't know if Trent Murphy is the starting left end right now. We don't know if AJ Epinesa is the starting left end. Quentin Jefferson. There's so many bodies that could be rotating. I do think the one interesting take that I saw was Joe Biscaglia from The Athletic. In his 53-man roster projection, he only kept 3 defensive tackles. He only kept Vernon Butler, Harrison Phillips, and Ed Oliver. And he filled in the rest of them with defensive ends, because Quentin Jefferson and AJ Epinesa have that ability to kick inside. He said they'll make it work at the one technique with Phillips and Butler, and they're just going to take the best 8-9 guys. They're not going to care so much about role. They're going to care about the best 8-9 guys.
I mean, Jefferson can play inside. We know that. So why not keep your best 8-9 guys? Like, to me, there's no reason to keep. I mean, I like him, but there's no reason to keep a Vincent Taylor if a guy like Trent Murphy is more valuable to you, or a guy like, you're not going to cut Quentin Jefferson. So that could be the case, right? It's either going to, you're either going to keep 9 defensive linemen, or you probably are going to roll with 3 defensive tackles and let Jefferson and Epinesa slide inside when they need to. And maybe even Addison. We'll see.
Yeah, we got a couple of people coming into the chat a little late here. Talking about Josh Allen. Yeah, we hit up the Josh Allen deep ball a lot early in the show. So you can catch that rewind, or maybe we can catch it up at the end. But another interesting take, and this is one of my fiery takes. I'm probably going to get flamed a lot in the comment section for this one. But I've been starting to tinker with my 53-man a little bit. And I've been trying to think through some scenarios. And one of the scenarios that I've been thinking of lately, and listening to Joe Miller's podcast today, the Overreaction Pod, really helped me sort of come up with this take. If the Bills cut Matt Barkley and TJ Yeldon, are teams really going to swipe them up? And you're allowed to have 4 veteran players on your practice squad this year. So if we want to protect Jake Fromm, could we possibly cut Matt Barkley and bring Matt Barkley back on the practice squad? The only downside there is that if Josh Allen went down mid-game, it'd be Jake Fromm and not Matt Barkley. But if you're willing to suck it up for one game and then bring Matt Barkley up, if Josh Allen gets hurt, you're fine. And TJ Yeldon, as much as I hate to say it, look at the Bills last year. Frank Gore, TJ Yeldon, Devin Singletary, when were all 3 of them active together? Or when were all 3 of them contributing together? So if you cut TJ Yeldon, and I like TJ Yeldon, but he's a dime a dozen back in the National Football League.
Let's not forget, he was not on a roster for much of the offseason last year. It wasn't like he was a coveted free agent. He wasn't picked up right away. Like, he sat out there for months before the Bills signed him. So
I'm looking at all these names. Someone's mentioning Lee Smith, Patrick DeMarco, Reggie Gilliam came up earlier, and we need to talk about that for a second because Heath Farwell had some comments on Reggie Gilliam that made my eyes pop. Anthony, maybe you've been right this whole time, man. Maybe I should just start listening to Anthony more. But it's, Les says it in the comment section. Cutting Barkley is risky. It is risky. Cutting some of these guys is risky. But in this sort of COVID off season, I think that Brandon Beane probably has his finger on the pulse of what's going to happen on cutdown day. And if we see some of these veteran names, getting cut, I don't think it would surprise me, because think about it. If we want to keep 9 defensive linemen to save Daryl Johnson, it's as easy as cutting TJ Yeldon and keeping Moss, Singletary, Tywan Jones.
Mm-hmm.
You protect Daryl Johnson. You keep Daryl Johnson as your defensive end. Cut Lee Smith and keep Tommy Sweeney. Okay, now you can save Daryl Johnson. So guys like Daryl Johnson at a completely different position on the other side of the ball can be saved with some of these moves, in my opinion. And that's where it's going to get weird, and that's where it's going to get crazy. And I wish I could give better answers to the people in the comment section. But like I said, like, it makes me so angry that I don't have these first team, second team, third teams to just digest and analyze. People say I look like Charlie Day. There's that thing where he's that gif where he's standing in front of the board and there's all those things in the background. That's me looking at, training camp rosters, trying to figure out like
just
last year.
Just get a drone, man. Fly it over the field.
Last year it was what, like Mike Love versus Daryl Johnson. I was losing my shit over like Mike Love last year. Absolutely losing my mind over Mike freaking Love. So now it's the receivers. Now it's the tight end room. Now it's fullback. Now it's backup interior offensive lineman. Now it's Daryl Johnson again. Like, it's absolutely insane. But that's what we do as Bills fans. This is what we freak out about. And that's why I love hosting the show, because who would be still listening 50 minutes into a podcast when we're talking about Daryl Johnson, Lee Smith, and Patrick DeMarco?
But I mean, you kind of hinted on it with the defensive line. The Bills maybe the path you're going down sounds a lot like keeping the 53 best guys and not necessarily keeping someone out of a position just because you think you need a certain number at a position, right? So, Daniel, did Mike Love give you good vibrations? I think he did.
What did I say last week about Isaiah Hodgins? I love that man.
You do.
Joe Bobby gave you a hard time for that one.
Oh, was it Bobby? I can't remember.
Yeah, it was Bobby.
Joe. Okay.
But let's talk about those comments about Reggie Gilliam, because Heath Farrell said, like, listen, these two dudes are neck and neck on special teams. Like, Reggie Gilliam's killing it. So, it's again, we're not going to get to see it, but it'll be really interesting to see if he starts getting first team reps at fullback, and if his play, if Reggie Gilliam's play on special teams starts to get him looks on offense. And who knows? I talked about the evolution of our offense in terms of getting Isaiah McKenzie out of there. What if that means also getting a fullback out of there? Like, what if we don't ever want to use the fullback unless we're on the goal line this year? Like, what if Brian Daboll has revamped the offense stylistically to the point where he's pretty, like, we saw games last year where Patrick DeMarco and Lee Smith hardly ever played unless we were on the goal line. So if the addition of Stephon Diggs and stuff takes the fullback out and minimizes it, Gilliam can be special teams 99% of the time and the fullback that 1% of the time they actually need him.
Yeah, either that or you can get someone like Tommy Sweeney to play fullback in very sparse situations if you're not going to really utilize it other than at the goal line. I mean, hell, you could probably get an offensive lineman in there to do it like we've seen other teams do, the offensive lineman or defensive lineman. I mean, take a page out of the Pats playbook, or hey, we saw Kyle Williams do it for the Bills in 2017 on that place. Look, I mean, to me, the fullback, DeMarco is like a locker room guy. So that's where this kind of gets a little murky for me, because like at some point it's like, okay, like great, but like we need to do the best thing for the team. And if we're not going to use a fullback other than for like 1% of plays and his other primary role is to play special teams, well, someone else like a bottom of the depth chart receiver or linebacker can play special teams, right? I'm not totally worried about that. So I guess it's going to come. And it's hard to know because, like you said, we're not seeing the practices. But like, how much of that is coach speak of them talking up Gillum, and how much of it is like that Pat DeMarco really might be a potential cut. So Anthony says here 2 running back sets over a fullback. I want to see 3 wide receiver sets. Like, that's what I want to see. And that's the thing that I'm talking about is we got to we have Cole Beasley, John Brown, and Stephon Diggs that we need to feed the football to. It's not like last year. It's not like last year where Isaiah McKenzie and Robert Foster were freaking decoys out there. Like, when we go to 3 wide receiver sets this year, all 3 wide receivers have the ability to legitimately contribute. You want to be Rams East, it sounds like.
I like that offense. But here's the thing with the Rams East, and everyone's like, oh, the Rams, they throw the ball so much.
Well, no,
that
it's just that they're always in three
yeah.
wide receiver sets. They run the ball plenty,
Yeah.
but they're always in that same base formation.
Yeah, that's the thing is that's what people get confused about is that team literally its bread and butter comes off the play action.
Right.
And they literally spread them out to run them out. It's kind of like Dino Babers and the veer and shoot over at Syracuse, where their mindset is let's spread out the defense as much as possible and run up their freaking throats. So with Zach Moss wanting those linebackers to make business decisions, who knows? That's something that
or get
that come in handy.
Or get the defense to force the defense's hand and force them into nickel with your 3 wide receivers, and then all of a sudden Zach Moss is going up into the hole against a cornerback, a nickel corner, or a safety instead of a linebacker, and good luck to that person trying to stop him, right? So, yeah, I think that's the key thing with that Rams offense, right? Is they're not in 3 receiver sets because they're passing all the time. They're running almost all of their plays out of that formation. So.
Yeah. So let's get to our last little thing that we were going to do today, and that is we're going to try to predict a surprise starter. Try to pull a starter out of our rear ends, a guy that nobody's talking about that we think could actually be a starter on the Buffalo Bills by the time training camp is over. Dave, did you come up with anyone? Did you think of someone to come up with as a surprise starter for this Buffalo Bills team?
Yeah, it's a mild surprise, right? And I think obviously a big factor in this sort of coming to fruition is that Starr opted out. And I think my surprise starter will be that Harrison Phillips will start the season at the one technique over Vernon Butler. And I'm saying that because he's back at practice. He's 100% participation. There was a good interview by Matt Perino, a good article by Matt Perino today where he kind of did a write-up on Harrison Phillips, some comments he made about like his first test on the leg, right? And getting over the mental hurdles. This is a guy that was on the ascent the beginning of last season, learned from Kyle Williams in his rookie year. And I think having Vernon Butler there as competition is going to help him, right? Because this is you're talking about a first round pick in Vernon Butler who wants to still prove he's got the chops. Harrison Phillips just has to, make sure he continues to clear those mental hurdles, and he could be a surprise starter come week 1. If he has no setbacks with this injury and he's showing that he's going to be, he's showing that he's stuffing the run in practice, why not Harrison Phillips as a surprise starter as a guy who's going into his 3rd year? We'll see, but that could be a guy that, maybe people haven't talked about much.
Where's my boy Chris Jenkins? He's still in the comment section. Is Chris still here? Because I'm about to make Chris happy again. So my surprise starter, ladies and gentlemen, I mentioned one of the biggest camp battles that I wanted to see this offseason this training camp was nickel corner. And I mentioned Saran Neal, and I mentioned Dean Marlowe, and I mentioned Teron Johnson, and I mentioned Dane Jackson. But there was a name that I left out on purpose. And that is because I wanted to make him my surprise starter for the Buffalo Bills this year. Cam Lewis, nickel cornerback, University of Buffalo, undrafted free agent last year. If you, I'm saying we are projecting a guy who maybe has a shot, and I was looking for a guy who was a surprise. So if he can come to training camp, and Brandon Beane last year after the 7 rounds of the draft was over, he got to that podium, and like one of the reporters was like Cam Lewis, the Bills signed Cam Lewis, from UB, and Brandon Beane's ears like perked up. He's like, yeah, Cam Lewis, UB. I think he's got a real bright future as a nickel corner in the National Football League. Like he went out of his way to define a role for Cam Lewis, to state that like what Cam Lewis was. And Cam Lewis had some concussion issues last year, but he was with the team throughout the whole season. So a year of development, there's something to be said about development. He's over those concussions. He's looking good. A year in the system. If Teron Johnson can't stay healthy, if Dane Jackson, who hasn't been in the system for a year, might be struggling a little bit because of the shortened off season, why not Cam Lewis? Like that's a guy who I think could make the bottom end of the roster and contribute as a nickel corner. If I'm not saying it's going to happen, but if I'm really trying to project a surprise starter, I'm going with Cam Lewis.
Yeah, I mean, your surprise starter is definitely more of a surprise. You adhered to the segment more than I did, I would say. I mean, honestly, I couldn't
I tried to give you Evan Bain, but you wouldn't take it.
I mean, it's hard. I mean, Voshan over AJ Klein, maybe. I don't know.
Ike Bucker makes a run up the depth chart.
I mean, Tyler Bass over like that wouldn't be like a huge surprise, right?
Ike Bucker's been on this depth chart for like 12 years, hasn't he? I feel like Ike Bucker's been here forever.
Yeah, he's pushing 40 years old. I'm just kidding. But yeah, he's been around. But like, yeah, I mean, it's just hard because
move up the depth chart or move out, dude. Like, come on.
Well, the thing is like in years past, like 2-3 years ago, like there were so many positions on this roster that were like camp battles that like you didn't know who was going to start. But it's like kind of a breath of fresh air to not have to worry about that as much, right? Like most of the starters on this team are entrenched, and there's like a very few, maybe you could say CB2, I mean right guard. Like there's very few spots where the starting player is like in question in my mind. So,
someone in the comment section, Heather Smith says Taryn. If I was mispronouncing his name, I apologize. As someone who like teaches children every day, I know how insulting it can be to someone if I mispronounce their name, and I do it often.
You also call Micah Hyde Mika Hyde, which I think annoys some people.
Well, that's just because when I was in middle school, my favorite movie was Euro Trip. Like, have you ever seen
Yes. Oh my God.
So that's just subconscious right there. But
hey, Juan Castillo says Matakevich. He was my like
I don't know
the radar
starter.
I know, but he was my under the radar contributor a couple shows back as like a guy who could like really contribute. Steve is the worst at names, as Pierre. Yeah,
I spelled Stephon Diggs wrong like in a promo once too. It was real bad.
You're like that Key and Peele where like he just like can't say the people's names correctly, right? It's like your classroom. Yeah. So yeah, I mean Matakevich, I don't know if he's gonna start, but like I'm not an AJ Klein guy, so hey, whatever route there is to give him competition, I'm all for it.
All right. Do we still have Davion in the chat section? Davion Price. We still got him in the chat section. Is he still here?
He was, as of 9:57, he was still here. So Davion,
Davion, show yourself here, because we got an announcement to make for you, buddy. If you're here, he needs to make himself seen in the comment section. But while he's hopefully making himself seen, and we will talk about this again on Thursday if we need to. But if you're still here, you are our super chatter of the month. So thebillsguys@gmail.com. Shoot us an email. Tell us what shirt you want from the BF Fan Shop, and we will get it sent to you, bud. So you are our super chatter of the month. Davion
Chris says he'll accept the award for Davion on his behalf.
So we will repeat this again. We will repeat this again on Thursday if we have to. But Davion, we appreciate it. You're always the first to super chat every show. He's like that guy in the comment section. He's always trying to comment first, and we really do appreciate it. And we appreciate all the super chatters and everyone who listens to this show, like all the regulars. Like, you guys don't understand. Like, this is awesome. Just to sit here on a Monday night after a long day at work and just shoot the shit and talk Bills football. Awesome. Absolutely incredible.
I mean, we're counting. We're closing in on 3 weeks now until Bills football. And, in the words of George Costanza, after watching those videos today, it moved for me. If you know what I'm referring to, it was just really nice to see those videos coming out. And man, Stephon Diggs looks good in a Bills uniform, doesn't he?
Yeah. Dr. Meme says, can you send me a shirt of Steve without a shirt, relaxing in a recliner with a beer in his hand? I could probably I'm probably rocking the quintessential white beater.
Do you want to let the viewers in on your casting couch situation you have?
Should we should we just straight up reveal what it looks like behind the background?
We should reveal the casting couch for those who know what that is. Steve's got himself a casting couch there behind the banner. Pay no attention to that man behind the curtain, but we are going to reveal the couch there. A little two-seater.
I'm just chilling on an actual couch right now. I have given up the computer chair life. At one point, I was sitting on a workout bench because Lord knows I don't work out. So Now I'm just on the couch, just chilling.
You've moved from like a desk chair to a couch. Next thing you know, you're gonna be like in your bed, like just sitting up with a pillow behind you with the mic.
That is the weirdest thing about teaching online right now, is that like I'll log in and like my first period class and I'll have 30 13-year-olds laying in their bed staring at me and I'm like,
This
oh
doesn't feel right.
This don't feel right.
This
Like,
doesn't feel
can
right.
you at least like sit up? Like some kids are like still under the covers and I'm like, what what do you think? Like what do you think? What are you thinking right now? This is ridiculous. All right. We're gonna have to put like an X rating on this show from now on.
Don't worry. There are probably enough people watching right now for it to matter too much. Dr. Meme says that's how he got an A in your class, but
oh Jesus! All right, Dr. Meme, we're gonna disregard the Dr. Meme comments, but yeah, it's yeah, Bruce, you showed up at a real bad time, man. All right, so all right, ladies and gentlemen, unless we got any more, I think that's just gonna about do it for tonight. Did a solid hour 5 tonight. We really do appreciate it. And until next time, go Bills.
go Bills.